All right, folks. Um, we are back for the end of part one to the Warrior Prophet, which this feels weird. I'm repeating myself because we had some recording issues. So, um, Jinx, I did just fill you in on this, but this part didn't necessarily. I felt pretty whelmed by what went down here, but I don't know. Maybe I was expecting a little more out of how much I enjoyed the first few chapters.
Mm,
Nothing too bad per se, and definitely some interesting bits in this little sequence, but which we'll highlight, of course, given
mm.
that this is going to be full spoilers for up to part one of The Warrior Prophet by R. Scott Baker. But I suppose we can dive in to chapter five yet again,
Yet
and
again.
get into it. So yeah, we start off with Nayor, who is returning with Proyas from, I believe it was scouting mission or something along those lines. But upon returning to camp, they realize feels maybe a little bit empty, and Confis explains that Kellis has had some vision and he's prescribed a march, which is going to split up the camp. Might be a bit of a risky play, and Proyas is a little confused, demanding an explanation. Right, so this was one of my favorite parts of this little sequence, where we see Kellis get confrontational for maybe one of the first times. Making sure Proyas is aware that they're equals. He specifically challenges him by saying, like, "You're not my better," and he gets up and angry. And they do proceed
Or
with
mock anger. Who knows?
right, yeah, yeah, um, and yeah, Proyas is the only one pissed off because, as we know, Nayor is never really very happy with this guy,
Mm.
his reluctant accomplice. So when Nayor, so Nayor is crashing out on Kellis for just being kind of a dirty manipulator, right? And what's interesting is, given the fact that Kellis knows Nayor is, um, not the biggest fan of the Dunyanes and all that, he has to almost take a different approach in manipulating him to like sort of he's kind of got a meta, right? So as opposed to just playing him like an accordion, like you can with a camion. Um, Kellis almost kind of pretends that he feels maybe more unsure or mistaken, which, frankly, it's as we'll get into later. It was a bit of a riskier play, and Kellis will later on have some contemplations about that. But regardless, the real reason he's trying to see him so unconfident is because he wants Nayor to start explaining to him why he was wrong and just get a little more understanding of the strategy, tactical rundown and info on the fan that we know Nayor has. So, um, meanwhile, Proyas is reflecting with Nayor as well later on. You know, Kellis, maybe he's not that guy, and it's really just idealistic tendencies that's leading to everyone's stalking him. So, um, yeah, kind of a lot of contemplations going on with Nayor in this chapter. He later is like so he's reflecting on kind of how opposite the Holy War forces are from the Skelvendi. And I actually think what's interesting is this is kind of in parallel with Nayor thinking so heavily about tactics um, in relation to all this, which we know is not a traditionally Skelvendi way of thinking about things.
No, it is not.
And going back to our first time we ever met Nayor, um, he was really advocating for more strategic approach to facing Confess, actually, and that led to the downfall of the Skilvendi back in book one. So yeah, what's interesting here is like now it's pretty clear as to why he differs from the Skilvendi because of the lessons of Moengus, who we know he was obviously very devoted to. And he does some reflecting on how Moengus teaches him. He taught him the value of knowledge. And what's interesting is actually when he comes to this realization, he's got a quote something along the lines of "War is intellect, and wage it with your hearts, and you are doomed." And not only is this relevant advice, but you could almost think of that. as a lesson learned from how he handled his relationship with Mungus and how all that went down. So, uh, so yeah. There are also kind of a bunch of pre-battle logistical things that were discussed. I didn't really take over aggressive notes about those, given the fact that obviously we've got the battle next chapter, which we'll discuss and how that went down and all that.
Mm.
Similar sort of stuff when we hop over into Sauron's head. He's you know in some logistical debates with Sarcellus among his main guys, and we get some reflections too about how Kellus really just hit a key note with him with what he said. The whore will
Mm.
be kind to you was
Yep. Luck.
uh, right. So um,
Or is it fate?
yeah. Well, I'll turn it over to you if you wanted to add anything. There were some
Nah.
things I zoned in a little harder on there than others.
Yeah, chapter 5 was really just a setup chapter. Chapter 6 is like where all the meat was going, kind of went for this section, these four chapters. Chapter 6, and then a little bit on chapter 7, kind of like I wouldn't say like the fallout, but like what happened afterwards. And
Right.
then a little bit of chapter 8. But no, that's a good summary. I'm trying to think, is there anything else like I really wrote down for chapter 5? I didn't really have anything other than that. There's one quote I have for chapter 6, or not quote, but there's another. There's like a phrase that's been. I'm looking at my notes for chapter 6, and there's one like phrase that you'll see
Oh yeah,
throughout
I mean,
the
if you
series.
want to dive into it, you can. We
Yeah,
can we can go ahead if you want to give the rundown. And
I'm fine with moving on to chapter 6 because chapter 6 is where the interesting stuff. At least to me, this is probably one of my favorite parts
it was
of the.
entertaining. I will give you that.
I think I just like the way he wrote it.
So I think so too. I'll throw in a little note I have on that before you even get into kind of the summary, because I'll let you take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
But um, the way he wrote it is kind of implying to me that the way he's handling the kind of when he does the third person perspective type thing, where like the
Mm-hmm.
zoom
Zoom
outs.
out. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've gathered this not only from now just having read many sections like that, but also reading like the intro to the book where there was, or the recap rather, of Dungeons
Mm-hmm.
that comes before where he had the third person. It almost seems to not necessarily be omniscient, but almost be a piece of sort of the history. And now I obviously don't know if this is the case, but if the Holy War comes out on top over the Phantom, then
Mm-hmm.
they are the winners. And going back to what was said, kind of an idea being played with in book one about how the winners will write histories.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of glorification. The men are being referred to as pious as they're lifting their swords in the air and all that. So um, I could I'll pass it on to you if you either wanted to add to that, or I mean we could just get into the details because there is a lot of ground to cover in
Yeah,
this
chapter 6
bloody
was
battle.
a quite a battle, and I'll do my best. There's some. Feel free to add stuff on stuff that I missed, but I just kind of like highlighted stuff that for the chapter. So basically, at the beginning of the chapter, we kind of talk about okay, sorry, there you go. Just kind of like again the structural lines. So we have like three major people part of the Enrithi section. So you have um, you have Galioth and the Tidoni, and the Thunayori. You have the Shrial Knights, and obviously you have Salbon and Scooby. So there should be three people, main like big house families, and then subs. There's their lords underneath
Hmm.
that are part of their kingdom. So they're doing kind of logistics, and they spreading out. They have a decent some number of men, and so do the Kianin. Although there's one thing I did want to mention during chapter 5, I forgot to mention was the way that it was hinted about the way they fought. They're like, I think one of the scouts that went to go scout the Kianin, said, "Man, those horsemen, they really know how to run away. They ran away. We tried to chase them, but they also can run away and shoot arrows on horseback." And everyone just scoffed and said, "That's not that doesn't mean anything. They still suck." And as you can see, I think they mentioned it later in this chapter. Like, yeah, that scoffing and pompous bravado that they had, uh, they turned on them very quickly, and they learned to be a little bit more respectful of that of those skill set, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for winners of this battle, they got like steamrolled. So
They got
yeah.
steamrolled, yeah. So how they kind of worked out, at least, I'm just gonna kind of summarize the battle at least a bit. So the I think it was Galthielk and his men charged. Most of the men charged down the hill, and they were kind of started the battle, and you could see the Keening kind of retreating a bit, um, and the Shroud Knights noticed it at a certain point. I think it was, oh sorry, Gotian and the Shroud Knights noticed. Were like, something's not quite right here. And it turns out like the Keenan had more people, and they were able to surround them kind of in like in a circle. So they were fully surrounded by the Keenan men. And the one thing, and this is where I was mentioning that the one of the quotes that, or I didn't say quotes, but term as you see more often is "death came swirling down," and that's been it was used. I circled it every time that he
Mhm.
said it. I said it four times this section of these four chapters. I think four or five, and it's been used specifically a lot later on in the series, especially in the next book. Um, I just remember seeing that. Remember that very vividly. Um, as he said, as one of the quotes was says, beset on all sides, the men of the Tusk died, taken aback by lances, jerked by hooks from the saddles, and ridden down. So they're just fighting, 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 and it almost seems like there's no way out. So a lot of them, you see a lot of the lords. I mean, I can't quite remember every single lord that he mentioned. He mentioned so many of what house and who are they kind of related to. This going down, their son's dying, and the father dies after succumbing to a wound. And some of the men were able to manage a retreat and kind of set up a fortification. It seems to me, and it was Gautien that kind of had to talk some sense into uh, um, Salbon, because Salbon was like, we nearly had him, and Shroud Knights was able to save them from their being pretty much completely routed. And he's like, you need to get yourself together. You need to get everyone kind of together so we can when we attack correctly, and we're not well, pretty much not getting surrounded, but also not what's the word, get, I guess, outschooled in a sense, um
Outsmarted. Yeah, I don't know.
outsmarted, outschooled, and basically like that. um So it's like when Saban was talking to Goatee, he said that that's what they wanted you to think when they were talking about, oh, we almost had him, because Saban was like, oh, we almost had him. He said, Goatee was like, that's what you want to think. The Keenan are too nimble, too pliable on the field, and too fierce of heart to truly break. When they charge, you charge to bleed them, not to rout them. So when they first charged, they were like, oh man, like they're retreating, like they're gonna die. We're gonna win. They saw their eyes, or was it their eyes were bigger than their stomachs, is what the term a lot of people like to say when it comes to food. When you order too much food and you don't nearly have the capacity in your stomach to eat it.
Yeah.
um,
I
yeah,
like that one. I don't know how often I've heard it, but that's good.
yeah. So you see the Pari Raja, which is one of the Kianin sons there. So the crown prince Fanile led the Koyori against the was it Quarsh? I don't even know. See, I can't even pronounce his name. Quarwishman. I can't even remember the name
Don't
of
look at
the.
me for help.
Quar- no, and
That
um,
person.
yeah, that person of Satadone who was crowned into the ranks of the neighbors to the west. Yeah, so he just mostly was just like the crown prince was there. One of the crown princes of the Fana was there, and they had like a little mocking battle where you saw uh, one of the enemies said, I think it was Salbon said, if you can kill that guy up there, then you'll be a lord. And people start doing pock shots, and yeah, nothing really came of it. Some people retreated, but there was one other dude that was there. His name was some Skyorus Ab Naljan, old dude, well known. We know that he was one of the people that Conphus knew when he was a kind of technically a hostage in the Fanem. He's very well skilled, um, well, well, um, well respected amongst his peers at least. Um, and then, so once they started to make like gather up the men, they started making another charge. Um, I think Salbon was saved by he was surrounded. I just remember like reading when I was reading this, like he was surrounded um, by a lot of people. He was in the midst of a battle, and he got knocked off his horse, and he said he had to like stab a horse to like get the horse off of him or
Hmm.
prevent it from like stepping on him or something. I can't quite find it where in that chapter was because it's kind of so disorientating. And he was able to he reached for I think someone reached for a hand, and that hand was a hand of a dead man, and he looked at it again. He was like, "That's that's me," and he was like, that really scared him. Um, and During that time, he was kind of surrounded, and then Kusalt, which is one of his person, kind of like a father figure, was helped him out. Was able to get him back into kind of safety, and he was shot. I guess he was killed. He was shot or shot with some arrows or something like that. And the last things he said was, he said, "I would have you know the old man was how much I hated you." And Saban was like, "What? Uh, you're jesting. Like, it's nothing. You're just lying to me." He's like, you're just playing around. He must be playing around." And he ended up dying. After that, they people started screaming, and they're like, "Oh, Kisharam are here, Kisharam are here," because they saw seeing some lights. So people, the Kisharams saying their words, their algorithms, and their eyes were glowing and stuff. And so Salbon, not Salbon, Gotien and his boys, the Shroud Knights, made a desperate charge to the Kisharam. Little did they know, little did the Kisharam know, should I say, that those men, that they were, those Shroud Knights had Koroi around their necks, their magic didn't work on them. It
Yeah.
only worked on the
I
animals.
actually, I wasn't sure, because I know they've got obviously the distinct differences. They can't be seen. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't sure if the Corey would also work on them, so that caught me off guard a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't quite know. It seems to me like the magic in this world, they have different like I don't know how to describe it. They have like different like six, so they have different types of like a way to perform things. So like
Yeah, they describe it as different metaphysics. I'm
yeah,
assuming you know exactly, you have a better idea of how what the differences are, maybe?
not really, because I don't think he really. I can't remember if he really goes into detail like in the later series. I mean, I guess there is a part later on, maybe that he goes into it that I can think of, but that's like I think it's later on in this book. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember it being like, the difference between the Gnosis and then what Eliazarus and his boys, Scarlet Spires, this type of magic that they call it. It's like part of the same kind of logic, because the Gnosis is the OG, it's the original. But
Mhm.
people don't know the Gnosis, and they try to recreate the Gnosis from like what they've heard and stuff like that, and they're able to make some form of connections, but is weaker
Mhm.
in certain ways. So it's like different interpretations of certain stuff. That's what I think I can remember. So it's like if somebody, I guess the Kisharam's interpretation is something that you can't, they interpret it in a way that you can't really see the mark of magic. So or
Okay.
sorcery, should I say? So that's what
Checks
I'm
out.
guessing. There's always going to be someone in the comments that you guys do not know anything. I thought you read the book, and I'm just going to be like, okay, yeah, um, true. Um,
We own it though.
yeah,
That's what
we all did.
matters.
Yeah, it's
It's all
not.
good.
It's okay.
All right. Hey,
Um,
I got you off track. That's my bad.
no, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Um, so yeah, and we see this young. So as the Charlotte Knights were charging this young knight um, from the Charlotte Knights had to Koroi, and he was able to lop the heads off of one of the um, Kisharm kids, and we found out later on. I think in chapter, I think it was either my chapter or your chapter. I think it was chapter 7. I can't remember which one it is. Some of these chapters kind of blur together. Um, like the importance of or how they were even able to reach the Kisharam. And usually they are protected, but we'll get back into that later on. But just know that these guys were thoroughly routed. They killed off a lot of those. I think they killed off 12 in total. Kisharam sorcerers, and those dudes are very very rare, as we know. And so Scothus had to kind of grab his boys and get up out of there. Scars. Um, so, I mean, that's pretty much it of this chapter, if I remember correctly. I highlighted this. Oh, so I think that was after the battle. Salbon Salbon was talking to Akka. Of course, Sauron being High Lord, he doesn't like anyone kind of demean him. And he was talking about like, man, this place is just scary. This place is cursed. And that's the one thing that we forgot to mention in chapter 5 is talk about his need for his doubt coming on in the beginning of the chapter. It was like a slight second of doubt, and I started really inching into his mind about what if this dude Kellis was lying, and he really isn't a kind of like saying anything, and like what if I am wrong, charging up to go meet the Phantom in battle, but
Oh, so okay. It was chapter 5 where we were in Kellis's head about that. Yeah. All right. Gotcha.
well, no, we were in that was chapter 7, but there was
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
and Salbon mentioned it in chapter 5 that like, yo, this guy is like he was so confident at the beginning, and he's like had like one like um it's like ephemeral thought, just saying this guy could be lying to me, and
Yeah.
that
Okay.
just kind of
That's
like
right.
made him a little bit anxious. It's like, man, this is not good. Like things could go wrong, and he ended up fully committing. But I mean, everything ended up working out in the end.
Hmm.
Um, but where was I going with that? Oh yeah, he's talking with Akka, and he was like, "Where's Kellis?" And he said, and he's like, "Where?" It was like, "Where's the prince?" He's like, and Akka says, "Kellis," and then he's like, "It's Prince Kellis to you, dog." Oh, and it's like, okay. And then he was like, "Well, he's not. Prince Kellis is not here." And he's like, we had to ride fast and kind of hard, and the princes don't make time for lowly people like myself. So, yeah, I don't know where he is. And he said, well, maybe you might be able to help me. It's like, what's with this place? And Akko was like, well, this is a place where Mog Farrell died. Mangetta is the place where Mog Farrell died. And Akka, and it's like, Salbon was like, yeah, I know that dude. Can you give me something else? And Akka was like, oh, well, he started reading off something from the scripture.
Yeah. There
Uh,
was some of that in chapter 5 too, right? Kind of glazed
yeah,
over a bit. Well, I mean, not. Yeah. Different context, but go on.
yeah. Where does he say? He said, "Oh, well, there's one." But he did say something like, "I said, when Saban I was asking about like kind of what's wrong with this place. He said, um, talked about something called topoi. He said topoi are the heights places where one can see far, but where heights are built with mounds of stone and earth. Topoi are built with mounds of trauma and suffering. They are heights that let us see farther than the world. Some say into the outside. That's why this ground troubles you. You stand with perilously high. This is the battle plane. With the feel, what you feel isn't so different from vertigo. So basically, this is like a a condensed area of just like pain and trauma, and there's so much pain and trauma like staunched in this, condensed into this one area, that like you have like lingering effects from thousands of years ago when the no god died or was struck down here. So kind of like seeing ghosts and having like hallucinations.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then he said this one quote from Enri from the Tut. He said, "You know, remember the line from the sages, Emiyati tir manu kin rasa ram." He said, "The soul that encounters him passes no further." Uh, and God, uh, um, Saban was like, "What the hell does that even mean?" He said that in some way he's out there somewhere, Mog Pharrell. Basically, he says, basically said, the dead do not escape the battlefield from sorry, the dead do not escape the battle plane, my prince. This place is cursed. And the no god died here. Basically, just kind of referencing like, yeah, there's something, there's like this condensed like energy here is like will cause you to kind of go nuts. Um, Again, sorry guys, this was kind of a terrible explanation, but that's basically what it is from what I got from that. And that
Well,
battle was like super very. I just condensed into like a very 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 brief stuff from what I can see because there's just so much going on. I was like, I'm not keeping track of everything, little thing.
oh,
Maybe I
don't sweat
should,
it. We'd be
but
here for like as long as the chapter. Yeah, I think you hit on what we needed to know, and what you were saying about the state of this place certainly is relevant to chapter 7. So
anything you want to mention on chapter 6? I mean, I thought it was good, very good. I think it was entertaining to see it from the third person perspective. And now I understand like kind of what happened and kind of how Salman kind of like feels for because this about the situation. Um,
now I agree. I will say so, as we'll get into in chapter 8, there was an action sequence that was going down just between two characters.
mhm.
And I actually found that more compelling just because I cared about who
Yeah,
we were
that's a
focusing.
lot. That is
That this is
a
that's my slight issue with like just handling a very detailed action sequence like this, where obviously the fate of the Holy War is, it's pivotal in that sense. But doesn't necessarily stack up with some of the best action ever, or even honestly the book one, um, like the Confis versus the Skilvendi, um, like I
yeah,
enjoyed
cause
that one a little more. We had well, first of all, we
mm,
got some spectacle sorcery in that one, but I guess in either like there hasn't been too much buildup of the relevant characters in it. So again, I think the third person fits as a result of that,
yeah.
but. Um, yeah, like considering this is debatably the high point of the section, it's maybe why I wasn't into it as much as maybe some of the early chapters.
I don't blame you because that is. I feel like that's a very common sentiment across the board. A lot of people say, "I don't really." If you're not invested in the character, you kind of just don't care, and because you don't care, it kind of is like you don't pay attention as much. So when you have Galtielk and his boys duking it out with the Phantom, you're like, okay, Gautier was like on here for like 2 pages.
Yeah.
I kind of don't care if he dies or his boys. Like they have no, they're just background character C. Um, so there's like it doesn't have any emotional stakes to it. Like if it was maybe Akka or Callus like in a perilous position, then you would be like, okay, there's some stake
Even
to it.
Nayor, who I don't like.
Yeah, or
But
Nayor too.
well,
If you had
not to say I like the other two you just mentioned very much, but
true.
yeah, I'm invested in them. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
you have some kind of at least connection to him. So I don't blame you in that instance, and I feel that's a common sentiment, and that is prevalent I think throughout the series. A lot of people will say, "Oh man, like I mean the battles were cool, but I like the stuff that's outside of the battles because it's just the way it's written and the people that are involved are." not the people that you were there with day to day. So,
Hey, I'm glad you get where I'm coming from, but given who was, I mean, this was certainly well written for who was involved.
mhm.
So we'll take it. But I did find chapter seven a little juicier, which we can get into if unless you wanted to add anything else on six.
No, nothing really.
Yeah, it's fine. We covered a lot of ground. Well, we start off the chapter with this human-headed dragon thing flying around the battleground. And this actually gives us a little insight, I think, into some allegiances. Whatever this thing is, um, definitely seems to be associated with the consult.
Hmm.
Um, and it sounds like, in their eyes, Sarcellus is dead. That's bad. But
Yep.
the Holy War is beating the Sisharum, and that's good. And what that tells me is Sisharum is not consult, and Nathan it is. That's just reinforcing some ideas that we have no confirmation on, but things I've been speculating about a bit these past few parts. But again, we'll see. So meanwhile, back to what you were saying about this place being cursed and haunted in a sense. Hawk is having rough dreams that don't stop when he wakes up. Esme's trying to talk to him a bit about, something fascinating about Kellis, about how he speaks far and near. But Akka's not having it. He needs to get out.
I can't believe it. Mhm.
And he's not the only one having nightmares, in fact, as Kellis acknowledges. Now, Kellis is not having any dreams,
Mhm.
and I think in the last episode we discussed the relationship between or association between dreams and the what was it? The passions, the opposite of the logos. The everything that Kellis is trying to rid himself with via by way of yin yang training. Um, so yeah, just further enforcing the fact that he's a sociopath, I suppose.
Yeah, basically.
Um, McKellis is getting contemplative. I mean, he lucked out, took a risk, and he's almost thinking, did the world respond to him? Is what comes after? Like, I mean, what he did to incite everything that just went down was put the words in place to maximize his probability of hitting his objectives. And I was a little confused here. I think maybe he was thinking like, did he know that that was the way to maximize his probability based on like what was going to come in the future? Like, was he thinking like, I don't know how I reached this conclusion, but maybe the future helped me reach it? I was a little confused.
Yeah, I
Um,
think he's just contemplating like, in a sense, like he's like, could the future have affected the past? It's like he was explaining like the future might not be so linear. It could be splitting into different paths or even circular in certain instances. So he's like, there's much more to this than just being like, it's just. I think he thinks like, man, seems a little bit far fetched. Like I basically was just instigating, um, just to get rid of Sarcellus because he's gonna go and charge and kill people. I didn't even think it was gonna work perfectly to exactly what I said, and my split of the moment, off the cuff, fake me out, fortune telling.
I got it done. Well, regardless, Kellis is confused. I was confused. The
We're all
question is,
confused.
Father, where are you at? Give us some answers.
Hmm.
So ironically enough, Sarcellus is back. Obviously, probably not the same skin spy as previously, but someone has already donned his role once again. I guess his death went unnoticed, so they were able to pull that off.
Hmm.
And he has found 11 skin spies, I think was the count so far.
Yep.
So they're all over the place. So that night, some celebratory things going down. Um, Triumph was the message passed on to Mathanet. And while all these celebratory talks are going down, um, Callus is glancing around. He is, glancing at Sarcellus, the new Sarcellus, um, etc. And I think it might be here, or maybe a little later on, that he's kind of realizing, all right, they must know that, at least that I have some awareness of them, or
That
this.
was my chapter, chapter 8. I don't
Oh,
know.
oh, it is? Okay. All right, that's my bad. Yeah, I didn't have written down exactly what that went down, but at least in term, it definitely what happens in chapter 8 is, there's a confrontation. But
Hmm.
so I'll hold all that. But so I guess we could jump over to Confus. He's all pissed about the risk. Um, and then, yeah, well, okay. I guess before that, during these sort of ceremonies, um, yeah, okay. So actually, Confus jumps in here, and he loses it at Sauba, and he's like, why'd you listen to this guy? This could have went so wrong. Um, what is this like? Obviously we know he's not a Kellis fan after the whole scenario that led to his disempowerment at the end of book one.
Hmm.
And even Nayor stands up for him because he doesn't want any sort of doubt. Um, and yeah, there are all these subsequent logistical debates going down as they're kind of celebrating. But yeah, Kellis will not stop staring at this guy. And he thinks to himself, I must move quickly, more quickly, father, because these skin spies, man, they're everywhere. Now, meanwhile, Confus later on with is Martinus. What's their relation again?
Let's see.
Or
Oh, Martimus. Martimus is
Martem?
his last. Is like his. I don't say his secretary, but he's his conference is like second in command. He's like his lieutenant.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. And now it seems like he's going to be doing a little bit of spying himself,
Yeah.
as Confus is, they're basically. Well, first of all, he reveals to uh, Artemis's interest, or Kellis's interest in Skaos, which led to them kind of realizing that he was no good. And they're thinking, well, the only reason he could have been interested in him is if he knows what these Sharam faceless men, obviously kind of grouping them into one category, are up to. So he must be a spy. So now you're gonna spy. Yeah. And yeah, so he's having this guy play fake disciple. We'll see if if Kel sees through that. But yeah, I thought it was funny here too. In trying to describe Skaos, he couldn't even explain it to him. I think because he can't even. He's barred by the limits of semantics. I think he
Yeah.
says
Hmm.
effing words is the phrase.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah. So go on. It sounded like you were about to
Yeah. It was like
jump in.
There's one thing you missed that's like pretty big
Oh,
during this
okay.
chapter was that he got Saubon got the reef. Basically, he got the kingdom of Gadia. So they were fighting
Okay.
in Gadia, which is where this area specifically, the battlefields of Mangetta, is part of Gadia. And so they pretty much won Gadia, and he basically said, "Yeah, this is your country now, basically." Um, and the whole point, and the reason why Conference is pissed is like, bro, like first of all, this idiot charged in and off of a word of some dude we can't verify is actually who he says he is, and by sheer luck he won. And as Conference knows, he like I guess he had spies in there. It's like he didn't really win. It was mostly Gotian in the not Gotian, uh Gatielk? Gatielk. Yeah, Gatielk. And the dudes from the Trial Knights that really won the day.
Yeah. And we
Um
know how the House of Bikuri feels about ceding lands and
yeah, exactly. So they
all
wanted that
that.
land. So it was like, this is our conquered land. How are you gonna give this to this scrub who didn't even? First of all, he can't even beat me in battle because Conference. I think it was in either this chapter or it could have been. No, it was this chapter, chapter 7, where he talked about. Yeah, or no, yeah, it was this chapter. He's like, no, sorry, it was chapter 5 that Sabon tried to attack Momum at one point to conquer the Norserai, and he faced Conference, and Conference whipped his ass.
Mhm.
Um, so Sabon like that's why Conference is like, dude, I just this dude's trash. I can whip him any day of the week, and you guys giving him this type of award. This should be my land. You
Yeah,
guys should have signed that indenture. This would have been my stuff. So that's one thing that the reason why kind of confident was kind of pissed.
yeah.
Uh, I don't think rightfully
Oh,
so, um, but I guess just how it is.
yeah.
And
And
then
also,
go ahead, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, being in his head again reminded me of how arrogant he was. And there was a little offhand line about how it's like the simple or weak men that the gods favor, because men like Conphus, who's like the gods,
Mm.
those men get tested.
Yeah, I'm like this guy is so and he's so arrogant. He really does not care what other people think. He's like, I know I'm better than you. I just know. It's just a fact. It's a fact
Yeah.
to him. And I'm like, yeah, this dude, he could be kind of he's an ass. And the great thing about the audiobook, because I'm doing immerse reading, if some of you guys don't know, is the the way he pronounced the way conferences he does the voice for conference is like an old British or like an older like Victorian British accent.
So
So
like
it's
a high
very
class
yeah
kind of.
high class, high brow, and you're like, oh god, this guy. So I was like, Monimus, what are we doing here today? And you're like,
Yeah, I mean,
oh
all
my
these characters
god.
have problems, but Confucius is just annoying. Yeah, in relation to his brother, I actually quite enjoyed him in book one, I guess, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
There's
no,
one other
no,
thing about this chapter. Sorry to cut you off. There's one other thing
no,
about this chapter that I kind of want to mention. I'm like, you know that uh, that Callus seems to be able to win people over, and you're gonna send one of your dudes to go spy on him, and as a worshiper, and you don't think he's gonna win him over?
yeah. Well, that'll be. I guess there are two ways it could go. Kellis could see right, or both. Uh, Kellis sees right through him, or Kellis and slash or Kellis, yeah, turns the tide on him. Or yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I was hoping to get some of that in chapter eight, but I can't really complain about what we did get in chapter eight.
Yeah. So
So,
yeah,
with that, I can pass the mic to you to go over it because
yeah. I was just rambling on chapter 7. Okay.
oh,
Anyways,
no sweat, no sweat. I just meant
chap.
if you didn't have anything else to add. I mean, anything else on chapter seven?
No, no, no.
Okay,
I don't say it.
all right, then go ahead.
Chapter 8. So, sorry, there was one other thing in chapter 7.
No
He
problem.
did talk to, we did get to meet, what's his name? Asgieri. That's how you pronounce it, Asgieri, which is Salbon's nephew. So that's his sister's
Yeah,
daughter,
gotcha.
which okay. Anyways, he kept calling his beautiful sister, which is kind of weird. Anyways, um, the after area originally in chapter 7, it was like he didn't really he kind of thought Kels was like some kind of like he's basically a faker. Basically, what he is. He thought the dude is just talking out of his neck. Um, and of course, and very after literally probably like one or two conversations, Kels has taken as he quote, Kels has taken, this is in chapter 8, Kels has taken the shortest path, and he has acquired crucial background knowledge and concerning Salbon's heritage, and he gained the confidence and admiration of his precious nephew. It's like one or two nights, and he's already got this guy as like his best friend. Like,
Hey, sounds about right.
sounds about right. And just be able the master manipulator at work yet again. Um, so yeah, he was able to get conference's information, and or not, he was not conference. He was able to get um, Asgieri's like confidence, and often Asgieri went to go get Kellis to go talk to Salbon because Salbon told him to come see him. So as they were going through the camp, they see this weird like game. It's I don't even know what it was called. Let me see what the name if I can find that name. Um, Dude's like stripped by a fire and they're tied to some like log. It's called Gendoki. That's what.
Hmm.
It says Gendoki or shadows to beat your Gadosh, your shadow, you must knock him to the ground. So basically, you have to knock the other person to the ground. Um, and we'll see. We'll get to that. You know, the scene in the later part of this chapter. But he sees Sarcellus there, and they already have a little talk. So it's the new Sarcellus was kind of goading him in a sense, and he told and goading Astieri, and then Kellis was like, "All right, Astieri, run along. I'll let me just talk to Sarcellus, fake me out Sarcellus for a minute." And so they kept the pretenses up. Sarcellus and Kellis were chit chatting, and Kellis was like, "All right, let me probe to see what this guy knows and see how they might be able to transfer information." Because that's why I think Kellis's thought process was. It was, um, you obviously are able to replace each other, and I need to know how you guys are sharing information. Do you guys share memories or what? So he
And
tried
in
to
that
he
sense, this was risky, man.
it was
Yeah,
very
sorry,
risky
go ahead.
because if it was transferred over, like they share like a hive mind type of situation, then he would be like, yeah, this guy's talking out of his ass. He's just lying. Um, and but luckily and it worked in his favor. Um, he Kels would start feeding him different like false information and sending him saying like, oh, where did he say? Okay, he said, oh, you talked to me in the temple like other days ago with old Sarcellus about how you wanted to do X, Y, and Z. You wanted to kind of basic insight that he wanted to defect against the console, but didn't really say the console. And he's like, "Don't you remember these conversations?" And he's like, the guy tried to fake it off and said, "Yeah, of course I remember." It's like I was just letting you know that I changed my mind. With that small interactions and those twitches and subtle changes, he was able to like understand how to read them now. So it's like, okay, so he won't be able to, maybe I'm not sure he'll be able to manipulate them, but he'll be able to tell if information's true or false. Which kind of doesn't really make sense to me because how the Dunyan learned to be able to read people is by taking, oh, actually no. Sorry. I don't know if that was I think that's for
Yeah,
later on.
I think you halted yourself in time from
Yeah. Yeah.
but what I will say is that I think it's at least clear that um Kellis is smart enough to be able to, even if because it at least seems up to this point that it's a lot of, reading expressions and just little different like idiosyncrasies and subtle movements, subtle physical attributes that will imply something about what's going on in their head. Um, so he can't necessarily apply those tactics here, but I think
Uh-huh.
he's smart enough to be able to piece out what other variables might be of use or something like that. He's adapting his methods,
He's
which
adapting his methods.
I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
I think he's got the intellect to be able to handle that. And obviously, it's not going to be as powerful of a method, but he'll take what he can get.
Yeah.
That was my interpretation, anyway. So,
No, let's just leave it at that. Once we get to that point, I don't know. I don't even know when we talk about the Dunyan methods, if we even do. Oh, well, we do, but I don't know when. I don't want to go too much into it. I think that was maybe even in the next series.
okay,
Um,
I'm sorry.
so we got a long way to go for that. Um, yeah, so we found out that he was lying. And so eventually, fake me out Sarcellus decide to do this game with Kellis, and they strapped in, oh, I forgot to mention this man Baker and his love with penises, phalluses. He just loves them, um, and just that the for some reason the arousal that these dudes have, these console characters have for battle, and of course makes him his styles hard. So you'll see that like when they go into do this game, uh, Fake Me Out Sarcellus went naked, and of course he was hard as a brick, and Kyle's was like he didn't care. Neither one of them cared. Um, But apparently, it was like you think he had mentioned that saying being aroused from powers is a show of like respect because I don't know, I can't quite remember. Um, but when Cal's noticed it, he says this is of all the rude or rud or is it rude? I guess it is rude. I'm not sure. Yeah, rude animal impulses that coerce and batter the intellect. None possess the subtlety or profundity of carnal lust. In some measure, it tinctured nearly every thought, impelled nearly every act, which is pretty accurate. And lust can come in different ways, not just sexual. It could be many things. Lust for like battle, or yeah, lust for money. It can be just pure, just like I say lust is more just than just sex. It can be interpreted in different ways, and it can shroud the mind, as Callus is kind of alluding to, or flat out stating, not even alluding. Um, so yeah, so they got into the strapped into the poles, and they start digging it out, trading blows, and of course, um, yeah, fake me out. Sarcellus had to start monologuing a little bit, talking about how old and ancient the console is, but didn't flat out say the console. And they're trading blows. Sarcellus was obviously abnormally fast, abnormally like dexterous, so he was able to manipulate his body and to move in very unique ways. Was able to counter in unpredictable ways. I'm just gonna paraphrase because like it's like it's gonna you can read it on your own. People that read it on their own. So they kind of like land on the coals. They knocked the coals. I think it was either Sarcellus or Kellis knocked the coals up, and Sarcellus did that to shroud himself so he can do like a one like kind of unusually powerful attack. Um, because Kel's realized, oh man, this guy's trying to kill me because he's trying to show it's an accident because he's trying to get rid of me. Because I guess, like you said, they kind of figured out that he knows that he can spot skin spies and technology. And Callus was able to block. He got knocked back. Him and Famia Sarcellus knocked into the tent and it was dark. And Sarcellus um, tried to knock him or tried to kill him. And in the end, Callus was able to finagle and maneuver his way and was able to knock him down, but in time before the lights or um, the people watching, spectators watching, was able to have torches and see that what happened. And it was just again another instance where Kel's is standing on top, and then the guy, his opponent's on his knees. See that more than often. Um, I think that was it for mostly that part. There's one thing that he mentioned. It said it said Sarcellus was not like really didn't have any broken bones. He should have broken bones. I said, but Kells knew it wasn't that those type of skin spines don't have bones. It's a thing of cartilage, just like
Mm.
sharks. Which I'm like sharks have bones too, but I guess not in that way. It means
I
I
think
know
I'm not sure if they do. I think they might be a full cartilage, at least like a majority. I am not 100% sure on that, but regardless, I see the analogy.
I'm looking up now. I have to edit this.
It's all good.
They don't have bones. What? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they just have teeth. They have teeth uh and yes, this is their skeletons are made entirely of cartilage, which is flexible and rubbery tissue. Huh.
Checks out.
Checks out. Okay. Baker done enough research. That's why he has a PhD, man. And I don't. Science. Anyways, um, so Salbon, we go to trips to Salbon and Afgieri. So Afgieri went to bring Kellis. I guess Kellis was waiting outside, but Afgieri went to go talk to Salbon, and Salbon is like, I don't know why he's stressed. He's just like, bro, what's going on? I guess he's still rattled about his death, seeing his death there, which I need to message Jimmy about something I just remembered. Um, So, not about someone dying, but about something else.
Gotcha.
Um, but Saban and Naftieri, so you see Saban was like, man, it's like, he can't see me like this. No one can know me. No one knows me. No one can know me. But obviously, Kels can know me. He can see my true self, and he doesn't want to see him. Um, what he is right now. So he's like, yeah, don't, 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 just send him away. And I kind of didn't get what he meant by this. It's like, you can't see me like this, and he just has a bunch of bones. And I'm like, around him. I'm like, okay, I still don't get this. Even rereading it the second time, I'm like, I don't get what's going on here. Um,
I mean, I'm kind of just when it is an often case where there are things I don't get, so I don't think too hard about it. But I guess on the reread, that might strike you a little harder.
yeah, it says, this is as you wish, glancing once again as at the bones prodding through the earth. He withdrew through the leather flaps, bones like so many little tusks. Oh, sorry, that is he. Sorry, I thought he got Salvan was surrounded himself with bones inside the tent. That's what I was confused. Bones outside the on the fields of Mangetta makes sense. Okay, I just read that wrong. Okay, never mind. I'm not confused. He's just tripping right now. That's fine. He's just off his rocker. So I guess Alfieri ends up sending him home. But the bones in the fields of Mangetta make sense, is because like from what I'm thinking, it is because I don't quite 100% know this is, but it seems to me that it's like um, it's just like things can't quite fully decompose there. I'm guessing that um, since it was like a major battlefield already, because when they first got to the fields of Mangetta, there was like, oh man, there's so many bones here, just everywhere. It's just like, okay, this place is like so cursed that nothing can really live there and decompose stuff. So like skin and flesh might go away, but like the actual decomposition of bones is like not gonna go away. So I'm assuming it's just like it has to do something with like the tope, topoi, as Aka was mentioning. Um, yeah, you guys feel free to correct me on this. I know you guys all know everything. Um,
But not
anyways,
me.
yeah. I think after that we get to Eliazaris
That's right.
and his boy Iacus. And basically, they're like, okay. He waited for Iacus outside the pavilion, passing by purchase. Everything comes from okay. So basically, it's just like you see Iacus is like kind of like paranoid a little bit. That's what I was kind of reading because I highlighted that. A little bit. I don't say paranoid, quite like super paranoid, but like concerned because the faceless skin spies, and like, dude, we can't tell who's who anymore. They could be anywhere. They could be anyone. So I'm a little bit nervous. So I need to have bodyguards around me because one of them could infiltrate and try to kill me. So
Don't blame them.
yeah, I don't blame him. I would be paranoid too. I'd be like, some dudes. I'm thinking of like the every time I think of skin spies, the thing I think of is the Demogorgons from Stranger Things, like with the
Yeah.
with
Oh,
the
you mean when their
face.
face pops out? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I
just like
see.
that's how I see the that's how I imagine it in my head. Um, which is yeah, I don't know, not quite accurate, but that motion of when they're opening their face is
Probably an
how I
equally
imagine that.
disturbing visual.
Yeah. I think it's more like hands, more so than like a flaps of a mouth.
Hmm.
Anyways, um, so that's it. Okay, so I highlighted this word. So it's suke. Suke was the sorcery of the Scarlet Spires, and he
Hmm.
said, suke, a sorcery. Suke is the sorcery of the Kisharim, and they talked about, oh, our magic's technically stronger. We're about the same in strength and in number as the Kisharam, Scar Spires. They both have around like 120 personnel, which is like biggest out of most schools. Most schools are like a lot smaller, which is kind of crazy. That's why they said I think this kid in the Kisharam, like in any really school, it's like one sorcerer dying is like equivalent of like 1,000 people dying, 1,000 soldiers dying because they can't just have that much destructive power. So losing 12 out of your 120 is kind of nuts to them. It's like that was a devastating loss to them. It's like losing 12,000 men. Um, so they said that was like a great day. And then they end up talking, and they just talked about a little bit more in detail of what the situation, talking about the Shroud Knights really leading the charge rather than Salbon being kind of getting the reward for it. Um, um, and again, they also talked about this skin spice and stuff like that, and the Koroi I used to face off. Um, and then they end up going talking about Akka, and they were like, "So, did you find more information about Akka?" And he was like, "No." It's like, "But we need to find more information. We need to do something about the situation." He obviously was able to. He's obviously like close to Callus, and Callus, we think, is part of Kisharam because he was able to identify the skin spy. So he obviously knows something. So go capture him. Um, or sorry, that's one
Okay.
reason. That was one reason for that I mentioned, but the main reason was um, that the skin spy recognized Akka and started talking in a different language. So he's
Yeah.
like
Okay.
has to know the skin spy. I think the first reason I think was somebody else said something like that. It was like a weird connection, anyways. But the second one is actually the actual reason. Um, and so yeah, that so he's like, okay, we need to go and kidnap him. Um, and they hinted out how they're gonna do it. But I see it now, but I won't tell you at all what's going to happen because that might happen later on in
All
this
right.
book or next book. Who knows? Anyways, um, so after that, um, we get to follow Esme and Akka. So Esme and Akka, are, of course, are out and about away from the fields of Mangetta, and they did not go to the main city. Um, and mostly they were just having like I mean Esme, just doing kind of doing like domestic life stuff. This is the I said, in my opinion, I said this is the happiest they will ever be uh, throughout this entire series. So enjoy these moments. Um, Esme was basically doing just doing laundry or playing around with the little scrolls, and she was kind of going through Akka's stuff, and she found a book with a bunch of writing. We found out that Esme can't read, and Akka comes in shirtless, and he was had good humor until he saw the notes. She asked about what is this the notes, and then all the humor died out. And he was talking about kind of the connections uh, of like his he's bored with the guy from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. His hair was starting to get a little bit frazzled the moment she started talking about it. And he was trying to explain it like a tinfoil conspiracy. Yeah, he grabbed his tinfoil conspiracy hat from his back pocket, his imaginary inventory, and puts it on his head. So, well, you see,
Back in business.
this is why I made the net, and he must be connected to the console, and the console is connected to Kellis, and then the Kellis is connected this,
Hey, she
connected
was
to that.
following it okay. Well, I
Yeah,
didn't mention Callus though till the end, but she
yeah,
knew.
yeah. So, um, um, and I think that's pretty much almost it. I remember there's one quote that says, "For a time, Kellis had been a trouble figure, but he'd soon become intriguing, someone warm, welcoming, and mysterious, a man who promised pleasant surprises." So their interpretation of Kellis kind of changed um, over over time, um, and uh, then they went to go after the kind of to talk about their conspiracy theory or Aka's conspiracy theory. They go look on the cliff to go look down at the holy war and just everyone there. They're like, there's so many people, and they're all targeting one place, and that one place is Shima, and they're basically to do battle. And I did forget to mention that's been in chapter 8, and I did forget to mention one thing else I did like is the song that they mentioned in chapter 6. Like, let me go back. Chapter 6. Uh, okay, a warring we have come, a reading we shall work, and when the day is done, and our eyes the God shall lurk. And that was a pattern, and you could tell. I know this is like you can cut this into chapter 6, or you can leave it here. I just forgot to mention it. Was
Yeah, no sweat. We're bouncing around. It's covering the
yeah
part.
the you can tell by the time when the tides of which team was winning or which side was winning is when you can hear the sound of one group over the other. So
Hmm.
when it's the Enrithi men on the front foot, you hear the song that warring we have come, reaving we shall work, and when the day is done, and our eyes the God shall lurk. And after that, if it's the Phantom on the uptick, it's you'll hear the drums. So you hear when you and it mentions it multiple times in the book. Um, you'll hear it's like okay, the loudness of the drums over here our call, so that tells you that the Phantom on the front foot, and it's vice versa. You hear a staunch sing a song from the Enrithi man. They're like okay, yeah, the Enrithi are rallying back and they're making a good strong stand. That's one thing I noticed that I actually did like. I forgot to mention that in chapter 6, but
Yeah, I'm sure
yeah,
the audiobook enhances that a bit.
yeah,
Well, you covered a lot of ground with chapter 8. I think the main thing you missed is that it's confirmed that Akka's smelly.
yeah. It smells
Which
like ass,
yeah, and his bag smells like moldy cheese.
cheese.
Um,
He
yeah,
did.
it checked out, but I don't know. Can't say I'm too pleased about having that information
Yeah, I
made
mean, I said,
visualized.
I said the same thing. I was like, I mean, people always say like, what is like, oh man, I would love to go back in time during X, Y, and Z days. I'm like, or I would love to
Oh,
go into this imaginary
pre-showers,
world. Yeah, I said, imaginary world. It's like absolutely not, nothing medieval.
pre-toothpaste.
Yeah, that's it. I like having my toilets. I like being able to have convenience of my showers. That if I could, if like, sure, I would go back as a ghost and as just to look around, assuming I have a toilet, a functioning toilet, magical toilet, and a magical shower with some shampoo and or shampoo bar, some soap, and then my toothpaste and stuff. Then sure. Other than that, nah, that's not happening for me, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Esme, I guess, for the revelation. And yeah, I don't know. With the Scarlet Spies, I almost had a bit of hope for a second that maybe, if they were to speak to Akka, they would, like he'd be able to reveal to them it's the consult and maybe unite
But
them to the cause, I guess. But then instantly,
yeah,
they
exactly.
were like, "Oh, he's gonna say it's a consult."
And it can't be. It just can't. It just can't be. And everyone just rules that out. And then okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Everyone just rules it out, and I just laugh.
Yeah, well, we know what's up. So,
Yeah, I know
um,
what's up.
and we will know even further what's up when we move on to part two. And is part two another 8 chapter?
Yeah,
Do an
all of them
even
are 8
split?
chapters. Yeah,
All right, perfect. Sounds good. Well, then the next episode will be the subsequent 4 chapters, first of part two. But until then, stay well. Jinx, thanks for joining me.
of course. Thanks for having me.
Well, I mean, it's your your recording studio here. You're having me.
That's true.
But regardless, it's the audience we should be thanking for having us. And we'll see you again next time.
Bye bye.